Simple question for you. Are Republicans dropping the ball right now? Seems like a fair question when you think about what's going on. I'm going to take your calls on this as well. 866-967-6887. Are Republicans dropping the ball? Because if you think about it, you have the Senate and the White House in Democratic hands. Republicans hold a slight 221 to 212 majority in the House. You have an upcoming 2024 election season to show that you are a united front, and they should be the choice over the Democrats. You have avenues to attack President Joe Biden with respect to foreign policy, with respect to the economy, faith in the system. You have polls indicating that the public believes something nefarious happened between the president and his son and his business dealings. You have Hunter Biden criminally charged. There's an ongoing investigation into other potential crimes he may have committed. That is political ammunition for the right. And what are Republicans doing? And when I say this, I mean mostly in the House. They can't create consensus. This infighting, this lack of cohesion, this attention to matters that don't really seem to be fruitful, like an impeachment inquiry. You can't come together on spending in the midst of a potential government shutdown. Are Republicans their own worst enemy right now? I'll give you a sample. This is Representative Mike Lawler, Republican representative from New York. Listen to what he talks about with respect to the GOP and the infighting. This is cut 15.
This is not conservative republicanism. This is stupidity. The idea that we're going to shut the government down when we don't control the Senate, we don't control the White House. These people can't define a win. They don't know how to take yes for an answer. It's a clown show. You keep running lunatics, you're going to be in this position.
It just seems like Republicans have an advantage and they're losing it. And is there a solution? Why is this happening? Are they their own worst enemy? Are they dropping the ball? 866-967-6887. All right. So I want to talk about this more. So you can call in about either Merrick Garland or Republicans. I'm going to focus on the Republicans right now, but you can call in throughout the show to talk about any topic or whatever it is you want to talk about. But I want to bring in right now Dustin Olson, who is the managing partner and director of consulting at Olson Strategies and Advertising. He's a pollster at American Pulse Research and Polling and host of the podcast Political Trade Secrets. And he joins us now. Dustin, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, Jesse. Looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Let's take a step back and just talk about why the infighting is happening right now in the Republican camp. Is it all about spending right now? Is that what they can't agree on?
Well, I don't know that I would necessarily agree that there's a lot of infighting. Anytime you get any group of people together, there's going to be different opinions. But I think this really is a case of there's a 4-seat majority. Really, there's four votes, 5-seat majority. There's 4 votes that really are at play. So what happens is you have 4 people can be very important and they can bring up their own parochial concerns. So I think that's part of what we're seeing, and various people have their own concerns. If you're talking about the impeachment for the inquiry, one of the things we saw, we actually did a survey of Republicans nationally during the August recess, and we saw that 83%, 5 out of 6 Republicans wanted to see the Biden impeachment inquiry happen. So my guess is all the Republicans went home during the break. They heard about it, and then they got back, and that's why we're seeing this happen. As far as spending goes, this is what it looks like every few months or every year. You have to have a crisis before anything ever happens. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it looks this way every single time. It's partly just a problem of the design of the system. But people, it's predictable every single year. Right up until Christmas, one side's going to be, accusing the other side of being the Grinch that stole Christmas, and we'll be having these kinds of talks. And ultimately, I was a little bit surprised that Kevin McCarthy pulled out the win that he did back in May on the spending compromise. And, so there may be a little bit of their success in May is something that Republicans have to deal with now.
But and focusing on the spending for a moment, walk us through what the division is. And this, I guess the simple way that I look at it is, there's an idea of trying to put together a short, spending bill, a spending measure right now that could provide immediate funding in the interim. But you have certain people in the Republican camp who, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems they want to have the larger conversation about spending right now, and that we can't kick the can down the road. We have serious issues of over government spending, and they feel now is the time to have that conversation, and that they're not even agreeing to immediate relief. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I don't know that if there's one thing I could predict, no matter what, and regardless of what anybody's position is on any of these issues, is I can predict, and I'll put it at like 100% odds, that government spending is going to go up in the next year and probably for the foreseeable future. There's only been a couple of times that we've defied gravity over the years. So I think that is pretty predictable that that's what's going to happen. And there are definitely members of Congress on both sides that have decided that's something that they want to make an issue, and they should. I mean, it makes sense. We spend. I mean, we just had 33 trillion, I think,
Right.
of debt, which is remarkable. But any idea that either side is really serious about curbing that significantly is not true. My guess is if you go to any one of the individuals, that they have a parochial reason that they can see right now from their own personal interests. This doesn't say anything about any one of them individually. It's just, if you think about it from incentives and disincentives, their personal interests, they have something, their pet issue. They know they can get their time in the limelight now. That if they create a situation of maximum pressure, that they're going to be able to get the attention and, ultimately, whatever it is. Like Matt Gaetz, my personal opinion is he probably is looking to run for governor at some point, and this is a great way to increase his low dollar donors and put himself in a better position. So my guess is if you pull back the curtain on any one of these, they have their own personal interests that they're looking at.
Of course, that's been, a tale as old as time. I guess the question is, I don't understand timing. I'm here with Dustin Olson, managing partner and director of consulting at Olson Strategies, host of the podcast Political Trade Secrets. Again, the thing that I don't understand is the timing of this. We have 2024 around the corner. You would think that Republicans would want a united front, give American people who are watching all of this an option over the Democrats. And in where you can argue that President Biden is maybe in a weakened state, you might be able to attack. There's what's going on with his son. There's what's going on with the economy, foreign policy. There are ways for them to look into it. And you would expect for them to give the American people a united front, an option. And again, you might not call it infighting, but I'm seeing a lack of consensus between moderates and hardliners. And I'm wondering, are they dropping the ball at a time when they really could have been using this political capital to their advantage?
Well, I'm not going to go out on a limb for any politician and say that they don't have the ability to drop the ball. However, in this case, with the impeachment inquiry in general, I think Democrats are going to get to wear their words from a couple of years ago around their neck, which is ultimately people can walk and chew gum at the same time. Now, I'm not sure if that any specific member of Congress is capable of that. However, that is what the argument for the last couple of impeachments, as far as that goes. And ultimately, as far as I can see, there's absolute consensus as far as that goes. As far as spending goes, Republican primary voters are clearly wanting to have a curb of spending. However, the devil's all in the details. So as far as people having their different interests on that, that's why this never gets done. And as far as, one of the things that we saw in our recent national Republican primary survey is that 89.7% agreed that there is a double standard in the legal system, which I heard you talking about earlier. No matter what any specifics are about that, that is a near universal opinion. And also, I'd have to pull the number up, but we did a survey in New Hampshire where we actually talked to Democrats and Republicans alike, and there was a strong majority that felt the same way there. So this is a common point of view, that there's an idea that there's a double standard in the legal system. So I don't know.
And I find that to be I find that to be unfortunate, because I'm an attorney and I look at every single case and every single situation and look at the facts of it and see, well, you can't just say, oh, they're going easy on Hunter Biden and going tough on Trump. Well, they're charged and they're implicated in two completely different things. And we don't know what else is going to come out about Hunter Biden. So for me, when I come on here, one of the things that I try to do is to look at this from dispassionately and look at it from, what the facts are and say, is it really two-tiered? Is it just political weaponization or no? And I have to tell you, are there mistakes, in my opinion, made by the FBI and the DOJ? Absolutely. But I'm also of the opinion that you can't just create this blanket slate. And it's unfortunate to me that no matter that analysis, majority of the people will look at this and think whatever it is they want to think about. That's one of the reasons why I think the impeachment inquiry is so important for Republicans. It's not necessarily finding that smoking gun. It's creating more bad publicity for the Bidens.
Possibly. I would say that what matters is perceptions, and this is really what the legal system is based on. Is if it has credibility, then it's credible. If it doesn't have credibility, it doesn't have credibility. I mean, it's just that simple. If people don't believe in it, then that's a problem. And I will just say the fact of the matter is it is universal across parties that there's a belief that there's a double standard in the legal system, and it's overwhelmingly the belief of Republicans. And I would say, it goes all the way back to 2016 and the start of the Russia collusion hoax that a lot of people started thinking, wow, this is crazy. And even you could give Hillary Clinton credit. She would also say the FBI's handling of the email situation right before the election, that also had an impact. So there are plenty of PR issues that have happened over the years from both sides that has led people to think, I don't know that this is a good situation. And I wouldn't put it on Republicans in the House. I mean, most of that time they were out of power, but this is a problem in the media in particular, and also with the Justice Department. They have not handled things in a way that the American people. I mean, it's just, I can just look at the numbers and it tells me that there's something going on there. And most of the media, it doesn't actually. One of the interesting things we found on the impeachment inquiry, there are actually some Republicans who watch MSNBC and CNN, and that's the number one place that they get their news. And even when we look at that, 58% of those who have MSNBC or CNN as their number one news source, even they think it's time to move forward with the impeachment. So really? I have no idea exactly why. Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, there's a difference by about 30%.
Well, I do wonder, and I do wonder if they could say, hey, listen, I think an impeachment inquiry is a good thing, because if it comes out there's really nothing, then it's going to fall in Republicans' faces, and maybe they're like, go ahead, Joe Biden has nothing to hide, and maybe they could use it as a way, as a weapon for Joe Biden going into 2024. I mean, that maybe, I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is the fascinating about politics. Anything could happen, but right. There's definitely there's a bit of a I don't know. We didn't ask this question. We're going to be doing a survey next week to national general election voters, which if anybody would like to give their suggestions as to what questions we should ask, we have Republicans and Democrats as part of our polling club. You can go to pollingclub.com, sign up, and you can give us suggestions for topics and questions. I'm actually curious to see, because in this last survey, I got the sense that there was a bit of revenge, honestly, from Republicans on this topic. And but we don't know. That's my hunch, but right. We need to ask some questions to find out what people think. And also, one thing we found in our New Hampshire survey recently, where we talked to Democrat primary voters, they will not say bad things about President Biden. However, a strong plurality would like to see someone else run. And I think a euphemism that people will say is that he's too old, but the impeachment inquiry, other things. I mean, there's at some point, Democrats who'd like to see someone else, they might start helping move things along, because it is very clear that people would like to see somebody a little bit with fewer problems on the Democrat side as well. And they use age as the issue.
Well, listen, I mean, that was my central point, is that Republicans have grounds, they have ammunition to use, and they should be more united than they are right now. And why are they not? That was one of the questions I posed to the callers about whether Republicans are perhaps dropping the ball. And speaking of which, I'm going to take your calls in a minute, again, about these two issues, about whether or not, Attorney General Merrick Garland testifying right now in front of the GOP-led House Judiciary Committee about political bias in the DOJ, your thoughts on how he's doing, your thoughts on that issue, and the separate issue of whether Republicans are dropping the ball right now. But again, you can call in at 866-967-6887. I'm here with Dustin Olson, managing partner and director of consulting at Olson Strategies and Advertising, as he was just talking about, pollster at American Pulse Research and Polling, and host of the podcast Political Trade Secrets. Dustin, let me ask you about Kevin McCarthy, who is in tough position for him, right? Trying to balance all these competing interests. You have those hardliners like Matt Gaetz, who's saying or threatening a vote of no confidence and whether or not he's going to retain his speakership position. What do you think the fate of Kevin McCarthy is?
I think he's going to end up doing well. And I think we're going to see possibly, I don't think it'll go to however many votes it was for speaker. But one thing you can tell with Matt Gaetz is that he does get timing, and he gets timing for himself, and he sees the point of maximum leverage. And I think that's what we're going to see there. But we've also seen that he was willing to work out a deal at some point. So from his perspective, he's doing probably something that's great for him politically. Whether people like it or not, I'm guessing from his perspective, it makes sense. And then from Kevin McCarthy's perspective, he has a very narrow margin for his speakership. And so far, I've only met Speaker McCarthy a few times in person. He's very intelligent. I would say he's navigated his narrow majority fairly well, even going through all those the votes for speaker. And to be quite frank, there's a little bit of a difference between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans are generally pretty fiercely independent. Democrats generally are more likely to toe the party line, and Republicans like having some of this back and forth, to be quite frank. And I think the speaker votes honestly provided him with the ability to be a stronger speaker than he would have been if it had been just monolithic going into it. So it's possible that this is going to be the same thing here. I will say the last spending deal where Biden had gone for 100 days without talking to McCarthy. Ultimately, the Democrats fumbled that, and McCarthy got a pretty good deal. Now, that last success is stale. So we'll see if it can happen again. I don't know if it'll be exactly the same situation, but he's already shown some ability to maneuver. So my guess is he's going to do just fine. And as far as what's going to happen next year, I mean, this is the one thing I can tell people. If you think that the thing that's never happened in American politics is never going to happen, you're probably going to be surprised, because it seems like every single cycle we get something. So all those people that think they know, we don't know. I mean, a year from now, things are going to be crazy. A week from now, things are going to be crazy.
Yeah. We've living in unprecedented times is something that I keep saying. Yes. Seems like every week, not even every month, every year, but every week. Dustin Olson, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Everybody can check out his podcast, Political Trade Secrets. And again, Dustin is the managing partner and director of consulting at Olson Strategies and Advertising, and a pollster at American Pulse Research and Polling. Thanks so much, Dustin. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.